Welcome back to Win BC, celebrating success stories of women securing venture capital in Atlantic Canada. I'm your host, Vanessa Paesani, with the Pond-Deshpande Center at the University of New Brunswick. So, we've talked a lot in this series about access to capital, and today we're getting into what it actually looks like to raise as an early stage founder, especially when you're building something that's deeply technical. Because having a strong product we know isn't always enough. You also have to make investors understand it, believe it, and back it. In this episode, I'm joined by Shanthi Shanmugam, who is the CEO and co founder of Urai AI, an early stage startup building infrastructure for next generation AI agents. With over 14 years in the software industry, including time at SAP Labs, she brings a deep technical foundation to the work. She's currently preparing to raise capital and is part of our investor Q&A program that's part of our WinVC program. And most recently, she was named first runner up at the New Brunswick Innovation Foundation's Breakthrough Competition, which was last month, recognizing her ability to translate complex technical innovation into a compelling investment story. In this conversation, we talk about the reality of building AI right now, as well as what it takes to communicate a technical vision to investors and what the early days of raising capital actually looks like. So let's get into it. All right. Well, thanks so much, Shanti, for being here today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So, in terms of raising capital, you're in it right now, you're building a business and you're starting to raise. What's been the biggest surprise about stepping into the founder role for you?
The biggest surprise for me is the number of hats we need to wear, and also the frequency in which you need to switch them. Like, it could become overwhelming and it's sometimes tests your resilience. So, I've been a developer, QA, and a lead manager. I've also run a software agency. Uh, but this is a completely different ballgame running a startup. And I think we need to be a I've been a builder, and that's just not enough. We need to know how to sell it, just not to the customers, but also to other stakeholders. So we first need to build a business plan, financial model, build a MVP, and also create a product demo and talk to prospects and kickstart founder-led sales, all while we are taking care of the finances part of it. So it's a challenge, and be it your savings or loan or grant or fundraising, we need to make sure that we have that in hand while we start this journey. And you cannot go to a full-time job and do this also. It's not possible because first of all, this building startup itself is more than full-time. We work on weekdays, weekends. There's no holidays. It's more than a full-time job. So yeah. So you and second of all, no one will take you seriously if you go on to a job, a full-time job, as well as you fundraise. So that's the challenge here. And so planning for this finances is the number one, and it's so easy to run out of money. So that's the first thing I would one important point I would say is that talk to other founders and get to know the reality of the expenses, and most importantly legal expenses. So it is not just the incorporation cost alone. Like when you get a term sheet, even before you close, there are expenses for review. And if you take a product to for early traction, you'd have the legal costs like terms and conditions, privacy policy, sales agreement, contract review, and so on. So that is all huge legal costs that we need to also, uh, you know, incorporate in our financial planning and model. I mean, that is if you don't want to take the risk by just taking ready-made templates, uh, and those ready-made templates won't necessarily cover your specific product requirement.
hmm Yeah, I can definitely understand that. Yeah, lots of hats and also you're building in a really complex, fast-moving space, which is AI agents. So how do you build something that's technically strong while also making it understandable to investors?
It's not just a balance, but it is actually changing shoes. So, where the biggest challenge is for us to frame our pitch based on the person whom we are talking to. So, one of the investors told me, like, explain this to me like you would explain it to a 9-year-old. And it was so difficult. It was very difficult for me. And for some, we need to start with, like, what is an AI agent? So start from the very basics of what is an AI agent. But for some, they don't like the fluff. They say skip the fluff and just tell me what's the mode, what's the USP, and we get responses like, oh, that is too technical when we say serverless runtime. But the same thing when we say to another person, they'll say, why are you beating around the bush? You could have opened with it saying serverless runtime and programmable platform, and that's what gets us interested. So everyone has their opinions and different views. So getting to know whom we are talking to and changing it on the fly is the real lesson that I've learned over the period of time. And everyone will have different opinions and advices, but to filter out and figure out what actually is useful for us and what is actually going to become transformational, that's what is the challenge, that we need to figure out all those things. And definitely all the accelerator programs that I have attended in the past year have helped me a lot in understanding and getting the right mindset and so on. And the most important part while pitching is that to focus on the why rather than the how. So I also use analogies when we are talking about deep technical problems, like, saying like, we are not just like connectors like the others, but we are the engine room, something that would make sense for normal, like we instead of saying, we use the word Frankenstein problem. Instead of stitching different tools, you can which is like a Frankenstein problem, then they immediately click, oh, Frankenstein, now I understand. You have to put in different tools from different vendors. Instead, you're just having one unified platform. Now I get it. That's the kind of reactions we get when we translate that with analogies and so on. So that's been.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot more lessons of resilience. So I appreciate that theme, and I know I was recently at the New Brunswick Innovation Foundation Breakthrough Dinner, where you placed as runner up. And so, what shifted for you in how you communicate your company as you got to that level?
First of all, I overhauled my pitches several times, right from the pitch deck that's anywhere near from what it was in the beginning. So what I came to understand is that there are two aspects to it. First, the substance should be there in the pitch deck, and they smell it if there isn't. And second is the storytelling part of it. So first, to build that substance, you need you which is required for the pitch deck. Like, first we need to build an MVP, talk to possible customers. Then that's when it figures you can actually portray the problem and solution in a more deeper way. And then you need to get some traction. Without traction, no investor is going to be interested in you. And you got to figure out the go to market strategy. Then only they'll see where you're going from here to there. So then comes the storytelling part. So I practice pitching to different people from different mindsets, different experience. Even though they are not our customer, even though they are not our partners, I just keep pitching to or talking to people about our product, just for me to learn. And I'm an introvert, so it doesn't come very easy for me. It's not natural at all. So there's a hurdle there that I need to cross every time I network and talk. And yes, so but that practice makes it much more easier trying to understand different mindsets and get to it. So I was also a finalist in last year NBIF Female Founders Pitch Competition. And there I saw the other finalists were of different industries. I went there and I just observed how each one was pitching, and I actually learned a lot from them. So it's not just what product they are presenting; it is also how well they present it and how well they are addressing the questions from the judges. So that really mattered. And I also took a lot of feedback from mentors, coaches, and I attended all this, whatever was available, any program that's available for founders related to startups. I just join them. I multitask. I and make sure that I absorb as much as I can and learn. And also, there is this conflict when we are pitching. One is that we want to portray ourselves in a particular way, but then they want us to present ourselves in a certain way. So that conflict is something that we need to be you know cognizant about. So, and in the case of Breakthrough, the team was very friendly. They were like, they first had like around 80 applicants, and it was a 1 day workshop where they presented like what is Breakthrough and how NBIF is, and all the details about it, and gave it was a full day workshop where they kind of gave a lot of information about breakthrough. So that kind of gave us an information and insight on how to prepare for it also. And so first they asked for the financial model and the business plan, and then after that was there, then they selected 10 semi-finalists, and I was one of them. And we underwent a workshop for a full day workshop where there was a pitch whisperer. So it's basically that coach
Was
from
that the title? Pitch Whisperer?
he
I
like
love it.
called that.
That's cute.
Was from Toronto, and their breakthrough team basically flew him here just for us to get the formula for the pitch deck. So it's we all know pitch deck is 10 to 12 slides and all these things, but how do we actually approach each slide? Like what are the essential points? What is the mindset with which we have to approach them, and how to build each and everything in a particular order, and and those kind of inputs were very valuable. And we also had a 10-minute run through with our pitch deck, giving where Frank gave a direct feedback on how our pitch deck has to be improved and so on. So that really helped. And then afterwards we also had another then we had, like, we were chosen among the first five, and we did this presentation and question and answers, and that was a full 30-minute presentation and question and answers, and that was really helpful for us to also, like, we went full blaze like preparing for in every way possible, product demo, whatever questions they will ask, possibly we'll have a slide for everything, we'll show them if required, and that's the approach that we took. And yeah, it helped us.
Oh, that's awesome. I like the pitch whisperer. That's a good title for a business card. And so speaking of pitches, as part of our Win VC work, you've been in our investor Q&A program, which is led by Dr. Ellen Farrell, who was a previous guest on the podcast. And so what's been the most valuable shift in how you think about investor conversations as a result of that program?
Yeah. So, in they had an investor Q&A kind of a portal where we had a couple of things. One was the actual documentation on what we can learn, and the second was the practice session. So the very first thing what I learned from investor Q&A is the shift. Like, I was actually surprised when Dr. Ellen said this, like how women are asked questions which are classified as obstacle questions, while men founders are asked aspirational questions. So, and she said it's common even among men and women investors to have this unconscious bias and pose these questions to women founders. So she was advising us that we need to be driving towards aspirational questions, aspirational answers, while we are being asked obstacle questions. So in, like, there is a practice section in the investor Q&A where I gave a pitch, and I was asked questions, and then based on the pitch it'll ask questions, and then it gives a result on what are the types of questions that were asked, and whether they were aspirational or obstacle, and how our responses were, whether they were aspirational and obstacle. So that kind of gave a very good like what we need to prepare for to actual questions from the investors. So that's the biggest takeaway for me, like how to answer questions to investors when they ask these kind of questions. And so I was always thinking, like, this is whatever questions they ask, just give it, like, straight from my whatever I feel. But then now I understand, even for questions you need to really prepare, and when they ask, you have to identify this is obstacle, and so we have to now shift to aspirational kind of a thing. So that's a shift.
Mm. Are you able now, when you get the questions, you can in your head like identify them as obstacle or aspirational?
Yeah, I am doing that. It's a ongoing process. It's a learning process. So yeah, but the very first thing is, for me, I have to unlearn this. Like, oh, I'm from a technical background, right? So in engineering, you don't overpromise. So you have to unlearn modesty part of it. Keep it aside and say, you got to keep selling the vision as if you're, you want to win. So, and that kind of shift is what, this kind of question answers, like shifting it to aspirational and so on. So, and it depends on how well we present to the investors about our vision. So definitely this obstacle language. I really did not even know these were obstacle languages. I mean, KPIs, I felt that's good. I mean, if someone asks me about KPI, I won't even feel something bad about it. I would not have even thought it is obstacle, and yeah. So it gives a different mental shift.
Yeah, and you mentioned, your training as in technical and in STEM. And so as a technical founder, how have you built confidence in the room, especially when you're early and still proving things out? If you could build a bit more on, the what you mentioned about, you know, under promise but over deliver versus like, here's the vision and here's, what we're going towards.
Yeah. So I think rather than confidence, I would say trust. Like I feel credibility builds confidence or trust. So when we say, when credibility from us, like it comes from the team and the work that we're showing. Like we just didn't jump based on the AI trend. We have, like, decades of experience. Like I have worked in development, QA management, and I've also ran operations. And my co-founder Vagni is an expert in AI and distributed systems, and we both have decades of experience working as colleagues in SAP labs, as well as we've run a software agency together. So it is not just the technical expertise, we also have the entrepreneurial grit to see this through. So basically our we build our confidence by showing, not just telling. Like we show demos and give update of the progress. Like we follow up with investors and we follow up with stakeholders, and we say that this is what last week we did this week we have done this month we have done this, and kind of give an update even before they ask. And we give them testimonials, meetings. We also like tell them you can also meet our early adopters and check us out. And we also show, like when we show a demo of, say for example, a voice agent handling a complex task, we are actually showing the underlying serverless runtime and explain them like how it is different and difficult to actually implement this. And so it's basically like we build our confidence knowing that we can actually do it. Like we actually can build it. So yeah, so we rather take that as a show that as a strength rather than something that we need to maneuver about.
Yeah, I like that. And I know you've mentioned multiple programs in Atlantic Canada. What's been helpful and what gap exists for founders that are in the process of raising right now?
Yeah. So I've attended. I would say starting from Energy Ventures Accelerator program was super helpful. Like they gave me a complete overview of different aspects to fundraising, and especially their grant money was super helpful for us to kickstart, and the Ignite Impact loan that helped us in the programs that was done by Ignite, and the Propel Attraction and Growth program, which right now I'm attending. We have a dedicated coach, and that kind of helps a lot. We have a weekly conversation, and I give an update, and I get insights, and it's really useful. And then there is this Ven Garage program, which is in mountain. So they conduct workshops. I travel to mountain for any workshop that they conduct, and they also make connections to, like they made a connection to medtech even for us. And they are also very helpful in the Ven Garage program, as well as this Atlantic Launch Export program. That is also phenomenal. Like we have a matchmaking service from them, where there were several programs that they gave also, like workshops. But apart from that, they have this matchmaking for the trade summit that's happening in Toronto in May. So they are doing that service too, which is useful for us to get the real conversations going with potential prospects, and people who could help us in this. And we also have you know like every program is genuinely helpful in different aspects. Like whatever programs I attended, each one of them kind of filled me with some knowledge and some training, some improvement, some learning, and so on. So, and what is the gap is that e- there is a generalistic approach, and sometimes they are not realistic to the current trends that are there right now. So, say for example, they advise like any program that I have attended so far, they say go for safe or price trons. Okay. And they say avoid convertible note or debt. But the reality right now is Atlantic investors say that they only do convertible note. They don't want to do safe. And looks like safe is disappearing from at least the Atlantic investors part of it. So the biggest gap we feel is that, approaching the right investors specific to our field. It's like, literally searching for a needle in a haystack. So we have platform products that are funded. We know that, the kind of the space that we are in, which is a platform and not a vertical app. We know that they are being funded, but they are in the US or somewhere else. And, and we know that we have an amazing product and of great value, but getting the right investors to who can actually get us, who see our value, that's like the challenge.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work. Are you traveling quite a bit?
I do travel like for the different conferences that happen. I'm going to Vancouver this for this web summit that's happening in May, and then I'm going to Toronto for this like trade summit that's happening and trade mission. And wherever, whichever program that happens anywhere, I went to Saxter, London also to figure out whether the European market was good. And then I've been to I go to Montreal like for All In, Startup Fest, and so on. So just get to know customers, get to know investors, and different other things. Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
The it is very different from what it is in Atlantic. When we go to, I went to Ottawa also to Saster North, and very very different perspective from the founders, the investors, the ecosystem there. It's very different wherever we travel.
Yeah. And if another early stage founder is listening and thinking about raising for the first time, what would you tell them to focus on?
First of all, figure out the cash flow. That is the runway. Like, how are we going to sustain? Because the startup is dead if you don't have that, right? So you first you need cash flow until you get traction. So you won't get traction without MVP. So you need to build the MVP, and don't waste talking to investors without traction. It's because they're not interested. So even if you after you get the investors, you need to consider they even if they consider you for investment, there is a due diligence which again takes a long time. It takes ages, and be prepared for that. Like, it will take a long time. So, kind of have that mental preparation. And then sometimes the terms may not be fair or it may not be founder friendly. So be prepared for that. Have a team of advisors who can help you navigate this rugged round, especially if you're a first time founder. So the journey can be nerve-wracking. It can be full of sacrifices. There's a ton of sacrifices I've done for this past years, both personally and so on. So it's it you got to build that resilience for that. You got to stay grounded and you got to stay committed for to see this through. So that's my advice.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the theme of resilience is important here. And as a final question, like as you've been raising capital, what's been both harder than you expected and what's been easier?
What's been really hard, it's the finding the right investors is the hardest part of it. The easier part of it was, you know, getting to know all the the different aspects to fundraising. That was the easier part, like attending the programs, getting all the preparing ourselves is the easier part. Actually doing it is the harder part for me.
Yeah, it's always the way, isn't it? It's, there's the learning about it, then there's the doing it. That's why we call it the, what is it? The learning doing gap or the knowing doing gap, I think it's called. So yeah.
And it is very different with each and every investor that you talk to. It's not the same. Like what you may think, that this you already gone through, this particular investor, you've gone to due diligence. Now talk to the next investor. It's like it's again starting from the basic, like the very first step. And have to understand the different questions. The questions could be completely different from what you received from the previous investors and so on.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your insights, Shanti. And I Look forward to hearing about how the raise goes as well as the business. And thanks so much for participating in our program. Congrats again on your breakthrough win and wishing you all the best.
Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure for me, and thank you for the opportunity, and I really appreciate it.
So thanks so much to Shanti for that great conversation and reminding us of, how important resilience is as you're building something in the early days. Of course, always important, but especially important at starting out. If you'd like to follow along with their journey, you can find them at uraiai.com. And if you'd like to follow along to other episodes of WinVC and learn and hear from others, you can find us at our website, Pond-Deshpande.ca under current programs, and you'll find the podcast there or follow along on your podcast channel of choice. Looking forward to having you join us next time for more in depth conversations from women in Atlantic Canada raising capital. Hope to see you then.